Hello, this is Adam for American Teacher on YouTube. If you haven't already, please click subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and leave a comment or question in the comment section below. So I'm on my second day after my COVID-19 vaccine, and I'm feeling fine. No side effects so far. I did feel a little bit tireder than usual last night, but that went away today. And so if you haven't already and you have access to the COVID vaccine, please go get it and help stop the spread of COVID worldwide. Okay, I saw some recent news about the effects of China's crackdown on its businesses. And the effect has been pretty strong. Now, some of the losses have been made back up, were made back up on Wednesday, but listen to this. Chinese state media is urging investors to stay calm following a brutal market sell-off this week that has wiped out hundreds of billions of dollars in value. Hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, that is a sum that would make Jeff Bezos flinch. Hundreds of billions of dollars lost due to the Chinese government's change in the rules. So, of course, the Chinese state-run newspapers are telling everyone, you should have confidence in our market. Everything is going to be fine. You know, this is just a temporary hiccup. Nothing to see here. But if you've been following the news, this is just part of their long-term strategy. And you can see, I mean, the Chinese government 9 times out of 10 lies about what it's doing. Just look at what's going on in Xinjiang province and how many times they have said that they are not illegally detaining Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang. So they lie all the time. So you have to look at their actions. Well, what have their actions been? And now some of this I've talked about before and some I haven't. So in an article from NDTV dated today, July 29th, 2021, it says Tencent is the world's worst stock bet with $170 billion wipeout. Okay, this $170 billion is just for one company, Tencent, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest company in China. The Chinese internet giant had tumbled 23% as of Wednesday, set for its worst month ever, after erasing about $170 billion of market value. In the article, it points out about China's crackdown. It says China's unprecedented crackdown on its tech industry has turned Tencent Holdings from a market darling into the world's biggest stock loser this month. The Chinese internet giant had tumbled 23% as of in July as of Wednesday, set for its worst month ever after erasing about $170 billion worth of market value. That marks the fastest evaporation of shareholder wealth worldwide during this period, Bloomberg data shows. 9 of the top 10 losers in shareholder value this month are Chinese companies, including Meituan and Alibaba Group Holding Limited. It goes on to say that Tencent shares did rebound by 7.1%, but that still leaves them down double digits. So they point out that Tencent, the Shenzhen-based firm, is one of the key casualties of an official campaign that targets some of the nation's tech behemoths, considered posing a potential threat to China's data security and financial stability. Let me clarify, not China's stability, the CCP's stability. That's not what the article says, but you have to read between the lines sometimes. Okay, it says that The sell-off in shares intensified earlier this week after Beijing broadened the regulatory clampdown to include once high-flying industries such as private education. According to Paul Pong, managing director at Pegasus Fund Managers, quote, "I don't see an end to the regulatory crackdown. Data security is a top priority to policymakers in the coming years. It's a new normal," end quote. Valuations, quote, "Valuations will have to be adjusted to cope with that, especially for tech giants like Tencent," end quote. The regulatory storm has resulted in penalties such as the loss of executive music streaming rights and antitrust fines for Tencent. This week, the company said it was also suspending new user registration for its popular WeChat services and was ordered to fix mobile app-related issues. Okay, so of course there will be, opportunists who will go after Tencent stock since it's lost so much value. But I think they're being rather premature. I think China is showing that this is a long-term strategy. This is not something short-term, and it should have a chilling effect on anyone who is considering putting money into Chinese companies. Meanwhile, China is still cracking down on rich people who speak out against the CCP. In a story dated today, Thursday, July 29th, 2021, in the BBC News, outspoken billionaire Sun Dawu jailed for 18 years in China. Since he's 67, this could be a death sentence for him. A prominent Chinese billionaire has been sentenced to 18 years in prison, the latest in a string of punishments against outspoken corporate bosses. I know, Crimea River, he's a billionaire. But listen to what he did and the reason why China put him in prison for 18 years. Sun Dawu runs one of the country's largest private agricultural businesses in the northern province of Hubei. Sun, 67, has in the past spoken out about human rights and politically sensitive topics. He was found guilty of, quote, "picking quarrels and provoking trouble," end quote, a charge often used against activists. So basically, he had something negative to say about the ruling party, the CCP, and they made him disappear. Well, go to prison for 18 years. And at age 67, he's probably not going to survive to see daylight again. So it looks like to me the gloves are off. Beijing is gearing up for the next big war. They are cracking down on dissidents at home, and if they could, they would crack down against dissidents overseas. They are cracking down against dissidents in Hong Kong. In another article that's dated Tuesday, July 27th, 2021, in Business Insider, Hong Kong convicted a democracy protester of terrorism in its first trial under China's draconian security law. Hong Kong has convicted a pro-democracy protester in its first trial under the national security law imposed by China. Tong Ying Kit, 24, was on Tuesday found guilty of terrorism and inciting secession, the New York Times reported. He was arrested on July 1st, 2020, and accused of driving his motorcycle bearing a protest flag, colliding into 3 police officers and injuring them, the South China Morning Post reported. The flag said, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our times," a popular pro-democracy slogan, the Post reported. Tong could get life in prison when he is sentenced, according to the Times. So I don't think he's been sentenced yet. He will be sentenced in the next few days, and we'll have to wait and see what China does. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does get life in prison. Now, I don't condone driving a motorcycle. In Hong Kong, it was probably a 125cc scooter into police officers. But you have to keep in mind, the police officers under Chinese rule, many of them are thugs. They are trained by the government to beat protesters. And this has been documented. I mean, there are several videos out there if you just look on the internet anywhere outside China, and you will find these videos of police officers beating peaceful protesters in Hong Kong. So, was he a terrorist? I don't believe so. I don't think so under the common definition of terrorist. The young man was probably angry that his freedom of speech was being taken away, and that an authoritarian government was ruining his home country. So I don't condone him driving his motorcycle or scooter into a group of police officers, because you can't tell just by looking at the uniform whether it's a thug that is sponsored by the CCP or it's a regular police officer in Hong Kong. But I do condone his protest message, and I think that it should be allowed. But what is all this pointing to? Well, it's all pointing to China cracking down on its colonies. It often points out the colonialism of Great Britain in ancient history, and the U.S. in ancient history, and yet it does the same things, worse things, actually. So it's cracking down on its own citizens, its own businesses, and it's showing a disregard for short-term damage, which leads me to believe that China is gearing up for war in the very, very near future. I saw something interesting in Taiwan news today. The Taiwanese troops were deployed around the presidential mansion holding rocket launchers today. And according to the news story, it's just training for the upcoming September. They have a yearly military event in Taiwan to prepare for an invasion from China. They've had it forever. And it's usually held in the summer. If I'm not mistaken, sometime in July or June. And this year they postponed it due to the COVID outbreak. So anyway, this military exercise is supposed to be taking place in September, yet they have, right now they have, according to the news, they have military men holding rocket launchers around the presidential palace. Now, of course, the president's always a target in an invasion. But do they know something we don't? Is an attempted invasion even closer than anyone anticipated? I hope not, because I'm living in Taiwan. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see people die because of China's greediness. Actually, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party's greediness. I also don't want to see Taiwan become authoritarian. Taiwan is independent. It makes its own laws. The people operate under a democracy. We have freedom of speech. And one proof is my video here is not being censored. And I'm recording this in Taiwan, posting it from a Taiwanese IP address. So Taiwan and China are different countries. Taiwan doesn't want to be part of China. Now, maybe back in the old days, when the KMT thought that they were the true leaders of all of China, I'm talking about 50, 60 years ago, maybe then a majority of Taiwanese people would have said they want to reunify with China. But now, in the here and now, the majority of Taiwanese people do not want to unify with China, and they're willing to fight to stop it. And that's the problem. China might win in the end, but it's going to cost millions of lives and hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions. And what for? So China can impose its authoritarian rule on a small island of 24 million people. Sorry, but I'm a little bit emotional about this subject. Thank you for watching American Teacher. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Bye-bye.